Curiosity is that irresistible urge to let out something that is happening in your mind, but it is that urge that is unstoppable that makes you put this strange idea out in the open, regardless if it's a good or a bad idea. But the reality is, some of the most incredible things that we have done, they came as an explosion from someone's mind as you're in the shower or walking on the street or in a meeting, but it comes because you cannot resist. When I think about ideas and people and moments that molded me towards who I became, I think it all came from family. I owe everything to them, from my parents, my siblings, my wife, my son. They always inspired me and pushed me in different ways. Some teaching me how to program, some teaching me to enjoy the arts and the pop culture, and some kind of teaching me that I needed to be responsible, I need to develop a work ethic, and all those things were very important, but it came from my house, from family. I was born and raised in Rio, in Brazil. My mother and my father, they both work for the government in Brazil. My father also, he was very, very focused on the culture, music and theater and movies. And so I always had these very strong examples of passion for the creative and the artistic world. My uncles work on the technology field, so I always kind of found those intriguing, kind of being a computer person, a programmer. And that's how I first realized that technology and programming, there was another way of being creative. When I was 12, I started to feel like, okay, I need a job. At that point, my uncle had a technology company, but one day he called me and said, hey, we just sold a sponsorship for one of our programs, and I ended up doing a little video game for the brand, design, a program and everything. And we would go to these big events with kind of the people buying it, and they would say, oh no, it's like the game they have in the end, it's like people spend hours doing that thing. And I'm like, that's interesting. It's not only is an ad that people can interact with and play with, but they spend hours doing it instead of just a few seconds. So this thing that a computer can host a form of advertising that you can interact with, that's the day that I felt like, oh, maybe I should be working in advertising. When I was 21, I wrote to the 4 agencies that had a website in the whole country. There was one there that was called DM9. That was, at that point, one of the most awarded agencies in the country. The founders, there was Nizam Guanais and Guga Valente and Afonso Serra, they were all the 3 owners. It was a legendary agency back then in Brazil. They made me an offer. And that was incredible to feel like, I'm here with those monsters from the business. I had never had big conversation about craft. And that's when I started to realize that, it's not only the idea, but the level of sophistication and constraint you put on how you execute it matters that much as well. And those are probably my biggest influences, not only with the work that they have done, but with the idea that eventually, if you are at a place that has a great culture that teaches you how to do well and project the work to a certain level, maybe it's something that you should consider, that is building your own agency as well. So I left after 3-4 years at DM9. I left to start my own agency called Agência Click. 1 year later, I feel like, I can't do that anymore. So that's when we decided to leave the country. I started to call a couple of friends, and one of them introduced me to Tom Pereira. He hires me. I go there and start my first week. There's an all-staff meeting. So they're introducing all the new people. They're just arriving the agency. So they introduce me, and they introduce another guy they started the week before, a guy named Andrew Odell. Andrew was in charge of new business at AKQA. I was the ECD. Red Bull calls Andrew and say, hey, we want to promote the back of the can. People drink Red Bull as an energy drink, but I want people to understand that Red Bull has impact on your attention and your stamina, your concentration. Can you do something with that? Everyone is pitching ideas, and one day, these two guys came up and like, we have an idea here that I think is interesting. I'm like, what is it? What if we do a movie about we can take this money that they want to do, we can produce a trailer for a movie about the National League of Stare Down, because it takes concentration and endurance. If like, what do you mean, stare down like that game, kids game? Like, yeah, but that's not a sport. Like, I know, what if we pretend that it is? We build a website for it, we put like 10 years of results backwards to pretend that it is. People are not gonna realize that it's not. And we do a documentary about this new champion, and every time the new champion is on screen, he has a can of Red Bull with him.
My name is Philip J. Rockhammer, and I'm here talking to you about Stare Down.
It's about focusing and concentrating and doing it over a sustained period of time that requires a lot of endurance, and that is what Stare Down is about.
It's like staring into somebody's eyes, it's awesome.
Flinch, you're done. That's it. It can happen like that. That, to me, is the greatest challenge that competitors can face.
I thought, that's pretty cool. I called Andrew, so I told the same story. And Andrew's like, oh, that's pretty cool. So we're gonna do a trailer for a fake movie about a fake sport. I'm like, no, it's a trailer for a real movie about a fake sport. And I'm like, but we have $30,000. We cannot do a movie. Like, no, $30,000 will do the trailer. Now you're gonna go there and get an extra $1 million to do the movie, and we do the whole thing. And if like, oh, okay. Hopped in a plane, goes to LA, and he called me there a few hours later. We're producing a movie. And we're producing a movie called Unflinching Triumph. It's a story about exactly what we discussed. It's a story about the national champion of stare down. There wasn't even YouTube at that point. It was so strange that the Wall Street Journal picked that as the best sports movie of the year. And the main actor in the movie was one of those two creatives. And those two creatives that did that idea were Rob Lembrecht, so today is our CCO, was our employee number 1, and Jason Napoliski, that is our ECD, that is our employee number 3. And they're still with us, still to the day. But these group of 4 people, we were the ones like, I think what we're doing here is very special. We need to build something that can do more of this, that combines a little bit of Hollywood, combines a little bit of Silicon Valley, and combines a little bit of Madison Avenue into one place, and let's do it. We knew that we wanted to open an agency, but what this agency was going to be, how it was going to be structured, the proposition, none of those things we knew. We looked at each other like, you know what? We just finished like a crazy round of years of work here. Why don't we take 2 days off and then we sit back together? I had just had a baby and my phone rings and is Andrew's like, okay, you're sitting down. We got our first client. So what are you talking about? Lego just called. What, Lego called? It's like, we don't have an agency, we don't have a name. It's like, yeah, we need a name. And we didn't have time, and like that's how we ended up becoming Pereira. Is because we had to be in front of a client. We needed a name, we didn't have time, and it's like, yeah, it's your name first, my name second. It's like, no one can say my name. It's like, oh, we don't have time. They were celebrating 30 years of the minifigure. We created this campaign that was called Go Miniman Go. That was all about the next 30 years. So we invited amateur filmmakers to create content using the minifigures. We created a blog where people posted photos with their Lego created scenes about that. And we also did one video that told the history of the world through the point of view of Lego, and it's still one of my favorite things. Eventually, we ended up being called by Intel to create something for them to celebrate their partnership with Toshiba. A few weeks later, we got back to Intel and Toshiba saying, let's create a new genre of films that combines social media and films. And the first film that we created was a game-like experience called The Inside Experience that was celebrating kind of the experience of being inside.
She wakes up one day and she's trapped in a room. She doesn't remember how she got here. And every once in a while, whoever is holding her allows her to have some internet access. And so she's using social media to get out there.
The ketchup bottle, it has a date on it. I think it means something.
The second one that we did was called The Beauty Inside.
I have this condition thing. Every time I wake up, I'm a different person. It's been happening since I can remember. They say it's what's on the inside that counts. It's kind of hard to count when nobody can see your insides.
You're not going to disappear on me, right?
I would see her again, but she would never see me.
That won an Emmy later. It was the first time that an ad won an Emmy against regular TV programming.
And the Emmy goes to The Beauty Inside, YouTube, Facebook.
Accepting the Emmy, PJ Pereira, Chief Creative Officer.
I mean, later we did movies with Werner Herzog and everything.
The explosion of information technology on the internet has led to some of its greatest glories.
We're going to have a revolution in our definition of what it means to be human.
Will there ever be an artificial intelligent machine that makes movies? Absolutely yes.
And that was exactly what we were set up to do in the beginning. There needs to be one agency that comes to this space that is coming from the digital side, because all these three things, they belong together. And if you're saying that you're a mix of Silicon Valley, Hollywood, and Madison Avenue, at some point you need to show that you're headquartered in New York and in California. That's when I moved, and then we started to become this bi-coastal thing, and then the pandemic happened. And as it was happening, we thought, oh, you know what? Now the teams are going to work on Zoom. If they're working on Zoom and different things, let's get them to work together. And it started to get more and more connected. And again, the circumstances pushed our plans forward and helped us. Now looking back, I can see how important my side hustles and my side project, my passion project were for me. Not only because they formed my personality, but also because they helped me stay mentally healthy throughout my entire career. Martial arts is something that I do since I was 10. My father was a judo black belt, so I wanted to be like him, so I always practiced martial arts my entire life. There has never been a moment without it. In writing, I always liked to write my own things without a client in my head. And kind of 10 years ago, I started to write my books as well, and found it was very therapeutic. And I realized that those two things actually helped me deal with the ups and downs of my career. I think I owe my entire career to the people that I watched around me, that I had the privilege and the luck to see them working and doing things, and I copied and mimic until I found my own way of doing it. And since the very beginning of since my very first agency, I always kind of make sure that we were investing on the new generations and and not only inside of the agency, but in the industry overall. It's an industry that gave me so much that I always kind of make sure since Brazil, I've been sponsoring the Young Lions competition at Cannes, for example, because I learned that at DM9 when I started. It's like you have to invest, and knowing that you're going to do something to benefit from it 10 years later, 20 years later. You need historical ambition when you're doing today what we're only going to see the results 20 years from now. Because the beginning of my career was as a programmer, and programmers are always looking for what is the next language, what is the next thing that is going to make my current job obsolete. That's how I wire my professional brain, so I'm always looking for that thing. And I think in a moment that we're talking so much about diversity in this business, I think it's incredibly important. You know, looking at the opportunities that we have, the new things that are going to transform their business are a historical opportunity to close the gap between people that come from communities that are underrepresented in this business, that need to have their voice represented in the body of work that we produce.
Art allowed me to explore my identity as an immigrant and allowed me to tell my story.
These big moments like the digital revolution, by social media changed everything, and now with artificial intelligence, those are big resets that allow the new generation to have a different look. I hope that historically we don't mess up and not using this big revolution that we have with artificial intelligence to, instead of to widen the gap, we use it to close the gap and have diversity, give more tools to more people with more different backgrounds and different perspectives, that so our business can be what it truly is, which is what I learned in my first job in advertising. When you have different people, you actually can be much more creative.